Oh, Russia. Oh, my beloved Russia. I folded it up and I placed it deep, deep into my heart. Boris and I became refugees. We fled to Finland, then England. And in the spring of 1921, we arrived in Canada. And in July of that year, my son George was born. Now I had to find work. We were living in Toronto, barely keeping body and soul together, and Boris was sick. Well, the priest told me that I could make money in New York City. So I arrived in Grand Central Station, ready to conquer the Big Apple. And I didn't. Instead, I lived down at Ma Murphy's on Charles Street. We were all working girls there. We slept 3 in a bed, 6 in a room no bigger than a postage stamp for $1 a week. Oh, I found a job all right, on 14th Street, in a laundry. They put me on ironing sheets, the heat from the sheets of the rich making me sick. The noise is deadening, the stench of sweat is suffocating. And in one side of a dress, over and over and over again, all day long. I received a letter from Toronto telling me that Boris was having an affair. I was near despair. I was walking home from work one night along the Brooklyn Bridge. Suddenly, the temptation to end my life came upon me. Simple, easy, the perfect solution. I found a space in the wires and I slipped through. I stood on the edge, looked down, and prepared to jump. But just then, the water rippled, and I saw the face of Christ looking up at me. In a panic, I pushed back through the wires and onto the bridge. I ran all night long. New York in the 1920s was a wilderness, and I left it a failure. When I got home to Toronto, Boris accused me of breaking up our marriage by going to New York. He was looking for a way out. I knew that. In the end, my love for him just shriveled up. And on the advice of a priest, I separated from him. But it would take me years before the guilt and shame were over and I could apply for an annulment. I got in touch with a woman I knew. Her name was Marietta Liddell. I had met her when I was working at Eaton's one day. She was a lecture tour agent. She'd invited me to come and talk to a group of her friends about my life in Russia. What did I have to lose? Nothing. So I went. Well, I learned something about myself that night. I could hold an audience in the palm of my hand. You want to know what power is? That's power. And it just pulsed through me. Marietta recognized it as well. She offered me a job on the Chautauqua lecture circuit, $100 a week for 12 weeks. Then I took it, and I was successful. From Chautauqua, I moved on to the Lamerick Lecture Bureau. I traveled all over Europe and North America. A big shot newspaper did a story on me. The Baroness, from rags to riches. I was living high and loving it. I remember I was in London and I was dancing. The first night I heard this voice whisper in the corners of my mind, "Have I saved you from death, Catherine, so you can return to bourgeois society?" It would come again unexpectedly, like rounding a corner and bumping up into somebody. Why did I save you? Why did I save you, my darling? Try as I might, I could not escape this voice, and one night, unable to sleep, I opened a Bible, and these words seared into my soul. Go, sell all you possess, and come, follow me. How was I supposed to do this? And what about George? Yet along with the urgings of the scripture came a burning desire in me to go to the poor, to unite myself to Christ in the poor. But I didn't know how. I went to Archbishop Neil MacNeill of Toronto. I told him everything, but he asked me to wait 1 year to pray, and then he would decide. Well, as the year passed, this voice continued to come, urging me to go to the poor, to be poor, to do little things, to preach the gospel, but with my life, and to love. To love. The one thing that I was the most afraid of. To love, never counting the cost. At the end of the year, the Archbishop gave me his blessing. First, I must provide for George, for his care, his schooling, his future. Then, I could sell everything else. I kept nothing for myself. I entered a small, drab house. The smell of cabbage cooking reeked in the air. I walked up a narrow stairway and entered a tiny room. The window panes were gray with dust. The linoleum floor was cracked in many places and was plaster crumbling off the walls, but I didn't care. I didn't care. It was here that I knelt and pledged my life to God. I called it my wedding day. God would be my beloved now. I had come to live with him and to serve him in his poor. Oh, I was young and I was in love again. It was the 1930s, the era of the Great Depression, and I watched as men out of work loitered uselessly in the streets. Then I saw how communists were taking advantage of the economic situation to spread their lies. So concerned, I went to Archbishop MacNeill. No, Your Grace, I am not mistaken. Look, these guys are communists. If anyone around here should know, it would be me. What do? Name it, they do it. They have soup kitchens, housing, unemployment services, whatever the guy on the street needs, they provide. Your Grace, these guys are smart cookies. They mock the church, and they're right. Christ has told us to feed the hungry and care for the poor. What do? We do nothing. That's what we do. No, Your Grace, listen to me. You are naive in Canada. Believe me, I have seen what communism can do and how quickly. Your Grace, listen to me. We must do something, and we must do something right now. I have an idea. The idea of Friendship House captured the imagination of Catholic Toronto. Young men and women came to join me, and within weeks, we had opened a storefront on Portland Street. At first, I could do no wrong. We had a reading room and a hospitality center. We served meals and taught classes. I copied the communist technique, but from a Catholic perspective. And all the while, my one goal was to welcome everyone as Christ, to build a house of love. Oh, but I was young, headstrong, arrogant. I made lots of mistakes. And I did not have the support of the clergy. So people began to turn away from Friendship House because of my faults. In the end, I was asked to leave Toronto, and Friendship House dissolved. My friend Dorothy Day of the Catholic Worker invited me to come to New York to rest. I went. While I was there, my old friend, Father Theophan McGuire, he was editor of Sign magazine at the time. He invited me out to dinner. Now, over dinner, Father Theophan asked me if I would be interested in doing some reporting on Catholic action in Europe. Interested? I jumped at the chance. Europe in 1937 was on the brink of war. You could smell it in the air. The threat of Hitler was everywhere. As I sailed back across the Atlantic, I became convinced that my idea of some sort of Catholic action was essential. I wanted to try again. Now, when I got to Toronto, I got a call from a Father John Lafarge. He was a Jesuit working in interracial justice in New York. And he asked me if I would be willing to open a Friendship House in Harlem.